In the name of Allah, the most compassionate, the most merciful, and may the peace and blessing of Allah be upon His last and beloved Messenger Muhammad, and may the peace and blessing of Allah be upon you all. The title of this presentation is Scientific Signs in Islamic Pilgrimage. Now, as an introduction to this presentation, Allah God Almighty commanded people to do certain rites of worship, like praying, giving charity, fasting, pilgrimage. Now, Allah God Almighty ordained these rites of worship not as an extra burden on a person, but Allah wants to teach you so many things from these acts or rites of worship. But sadly, the majority of Muslims, they don't know what Allah Almighty wants to teach them from these kind of rites of worship, like fasting, pilgrimage, and praying. And they do like a mechanical kind of movements in this prayer and this kind of pilgrimage. But as I said, what Allah wants to teach you from them, they are in great ignorance about this. So in this presentation, I will show, with the guidance of Allah God Almighty, how to know what Allah wants to teach us from Islamic pilgrimage. Now, to start with, the sign in circumambulation around the Kaaba. Now, one main pillar in pilgrimage, people going around in circle around the Kaaba, a certain place where Allah God Almighty commanded people to circumambulation, to do circumambulation around this place. As you can see in the screen, the center object, the black one, is the Kaaba, and we can see people around the Kaaba. Now, as I said, in pilgrimage, people go around in circles around the Kaaba in 7 passes, and they are commanded to move fast in the first 3 passes. Now, to think what Allah God Almighty wants us to learn from commanding us to go in circles, to do circumambulation around the central object, the Kaaba. So if we think and ponder upon this, because Allah God Almighty orders us in the Quran to ponder and reflect upon matters, and not just merely, just passing quickly without thinking and pondering upon them. So we see that people around the Kaaba, when they go around in circles, they form a certain pattern. And the best description, geometric description for this pattern is concentric circles. They form concentric circles around the Kaaba, as you can see in the picture. Now, when a person looks at this kind of pattern, this geometric pattern of people around the Kaaba, we see that it has a striking resemblance of energy propagation in water. So if you drop a rock in a pond of water, the energy propagates from this source of energy with concentric circles. So we see there is a striking resemblance between the pattern formed by people around the Kaaba and when they do circumambulation, and with the energy propagation in water. And I'll come back to the significance of this similarity in a minute. Now, coming to another sign, in why Allah God Almighty ordered us to do 7 passes around the Kaaba, to go around 7 times in circles. Why 7? Why not 9? Why not 5? Why not 3? What's the importance in 7? Now we can learn the answer for this in the Quran, in chapter 71, verse 15, which reads, "Don't you see how Allah God created 7 heavens, one above another?" So in the Quran, Allah tells us that this universe is composed of 7 heavens. So we learn from this that this universe is composed of 7 heavens, like 7 spheres on top of each other, one above the other. And all the creatures that Allah created, humans, insects, stars, angels, they are found within these 7 heavens. So we learn so far that the pattern formed by people going around the Kaaba is like water and energy propagation in water, and the number 7 symbolizes the universe, which was created from 7 heavens or 7 spheres, one on top of the other, one inside the other. Now, to think about it, what is the link between the symbolism to water and creation made of 7 heavens and the main supplication that the pilgrim say when he's going around the Kaaba? He's saying to Allah that you have no partners. So again, the main kind of supplication that the pilgrim, what he says when he's going around the Kaaba, he's telling Allah and he's testifying that Allah God has no partner, He's one and only. So what's the link between this and water and the universe? Now the link is again given in the Quran in chapter 21 verse 30, which reads, "Have not those who disbelieve known that the heavens and the earth were joined together as one weaved fabric? Then Allah God tore them apart, and Allah God has made from water every living thing. Will they not then believe?" So here Allah God Almighty is telling us that He has made from water every living thing. Now this means that Allah created everything with the same design of water. So the link between testifying to Allah that He has no partners and the symbolism in water and in the universe, Allah is teaching us a great sign, which is that Allah created everything we see around us with the same design of water. Let me illustrate this with pictures. If we think about energy propagation from light sources in creation, like stars, lights, any kind of in a light source, we see that energy propagates from this source with concentric circles, as you can see on the screen. Exactly like energy propagation in water, exactly like the pattern the pilgrims they make when they go around the Kaaba. Also, if we look at how energy propagates mechanically, here we have earthquakes. Again, we see that energy propagates from the center of the earthquake with concentric circles, exactly like water. We see, brothers and sisters, how Allah created everything we see around us with the same design of water. Also, if we think about this is the signal recorded during brain activity. When your brain is working, we can record the signals produced from it, and we can see they are exactly like water waves. So we learn from these examples, brothers and sisters, that everything around us is made with the same design of water. What's the significance of this? Now, when we see that all creation is made with the same method, same methodology, there is only one way in creation, which is the same design of water. This means that the Creator is one. One Creator, one method of creation. Now, if there were more than one Creator, more than one God, then we would have seen different methods of creation. A God would have created like water, a God created another thing, and that will produce kind of inhomogeneous universe. There will be conflict, and the universe will be torn and will be destroyed. And this fact is recorded in the Quran in chapter 21 verse 22, which reads, "Had there been therein gods beside Allah, then verily both would have been ruined. Glorified is Allah God, the Lord of the throne, above what they attribute to Him." So Allah is telling us in the Quran that if there were more than one God, then the heavens and earth would have been ruined. Because, as I said, different methods of creation, there will be kind of conflict in homogeneous universe. But what we actually see, a perfect homogeneous universe like clockwork. This means there's only one Creator, and He created everything with the same design of water. So we learn when people do pilgrimage, when they go around the Kaaba, Allah God Almighty is teaching them a scientific sign that they can use to testify and to show people that Allah God is one. He's not three in one. He's not more than one God. Again, Allah God Almighty is teaching people when they do pilgrimage, is not only the act or the rite what you do, is Allah is teaching you a scientific sign like water, and when you go around it's like water waves. The sign of water is a sign which testifies there's only one Creator. So I hope we understood now this pillar of pilgrimage, what Allah wants to teach you from it. To go into another kind of topic in pilgrimage. Now, the pilgrims, they drink Zamzam water. It's water in that place which gushes forth from rocks. So it's water in that location. So now to ponder upon this, why Zamzam water? Why this special type of water? Why can't a person there drink any other type of water? He can, but so the question now, why a pilgrim drinks Zamzam water, this kind of water? So the main conclusion, or the first conclusion from this, that there is something special about this water. Now, if we analyze Zamzam water, the water that gushes forth in a certain well there, we see that it has so many characteristics, but one characteristic it comes forward, that it has a high concentration of calcium and magnesium elements, calcium and magnesium. So if you think about this, calcium is a main kind of substance in the human body involved in the contraction of muscles. So when the pilgrim is doing the rites of pilgrimage, he needs energy. So Allah God Almighty, out of His mercy, when that person drinks this water, it supplies the body with more kind of calcium, and thus there is kind of more strength in muscles, and thus he can perform and complete the rites of pilgrimage with ease, with more ease. So we see, this kind of scientific sign in Zamzam water. Also, there's another thing to note, that people tried to take calcium supplements, but what they noticed that after a while it increases the risk of kidney stones. Now, Allah Almighty, in Zamzam water, this problem is solved, because, as I said, it has calcium with higher concentrations, but also magnesium. Now, magnesium, when there is a higher concentration of magnesium, it stops the formation of kidney stones. So when you put calcium and magnesium in certain kind of proportions, it reduces the risk of formation of kidney stones. So we see, brothers and sisters, and also Zamzam water is excellent in healing osteoporosis, because when you supply the body with oxygen, with calcium and magnesium in these proportions, in addition to other kind of substance in Zamzam water, it's excellent for osteoporosis and the healing of osteoporosis and giving more strength to muscles and bone. Because if the strength of muscle increases, that would increase the strength of the underlying bone. So we see Allah Almighty is teaching us so many things, so many scientific signs in pilgrimage, to show it to people, to guide people to the path of Allah God Almighty. Now, coming to another kind of sign in pilgrimage, about the sequence of the rites of pilgrimage. Now, Allah God Almighty ordered us to do pilgrimage in a certain sequence. First, you do the circumambulation, you go around the Kaaba in circles. Then you stand on a mountain, the mountain of Arafah, and then when you finish standing on that mountain for a certain period of time, you go down and you go to do kind of go between two appointed places, to go back and forth 7 times, and then you go to throw stones at a certain location. You throw stones at a certain location there. So what is the scientific sign in the sequence of these events? You will see, brothers and sisters, that the sequence of these events, they map out your life. Allah Almighty shows you a diagram of your life. How? In this life, you strive, and the symbol is that it symbolizes the circumambulation around the Kaaba, going around the Kaaba, and the effort you put there. It symbolizes the putting effort in your life, and the best thing to do in your life is to strive to make the word of Allah God supreme. Then a person dies and he's resurrected, and then Allah will gather people in a certain place, and the symbol of that in the pilgrimage is people standing on the Mount of Arafah, like people, they're coming out of their graves, and Allah will put them in a certain location. Then the people will go to judgment. Allah will judge them for their actions. And judgment is not easy. When you are asked by Allah God Almighty why you did that, this and that, it's not easy. because you are asked by the Lord of all that exists, Allah God Almighty. And the symbol of that in pilgrimage is going back and forward between two appointed places 7 times. Then, after judgment is made, and the people of heaven go to heaven and the people of hell go to hell, now comes a certain kind of point. At the end of the pilgrimage, people, they throw stones at a certain location, and like they are throwing stones at Satan, the devil. What Allah God Almighty wants you to learn from this, that Satan is your enemy. This symbolizes that Satan is your main enemy. And it is our common enemy, Satan. And in this life, he affects you, and I explain this in so many of my videos. He affects you by a voice match, the one you think to you, he matches his voice to the one you think in your mind, and you hear ideas. The ideas pop up in your mind, ideas of harm to hurt yourself and others, ideas of lust and perverse sexual ideas, ideas of saying about Allah what you have a knowledge of, blasphemy. All of these thoughts are from Satan, from the devil. Now, so Allah wants to draw you to this kind of very important fact, to be aware of this. And in the Quran, we learn that at the end of everything, when people of heaven go to heaven and the people of hell go to hell, Satan will tell people that, and this is one verse in the Quran, but I'll give you the main conclusions from it, that Satan will tell people that Allah God Almighty promised you the truth, and that Satan promised you, but he betrayed you, and that Satan is telling people that I had no authority over you except that I called you and you responded. And the meaning of this, that in this life, when he whispers to you by a voice match, the one you think with, for example, he tells you in your mind to insult Prophet Muhammad, and he's giving you all kind of arguments to do that. And when you do it, Satan is telling you at the end of everything that I had no authority over you. I couldn't force you to do this. I just called you and you responded, meaning that he just whispered to you and you responded, because he cannot move your tongue and lips against your will. But what he does, he whispers to you, and then either you do or you don't do. So we see in pilgrimage, brothers and sisters, the sequence of events symbolize your life. And as we saw, Allah God Almighty is teaching you so many things out of the rites of pilgrimage, such that when you go back after doing this act of worship, when you go back, Allah expects you to use these signs to strive to make His word supreme, to tell it to people. And you can do it right now. You can send this lecture by email to people. You can make websites showing this lecture. You can on TV, on radio, any kind, on the phone. And so many of us, we have non-Muslim acquaintances. We know people which are non-Muslims. You can deliver the message to them. Allah expects you to do that. And if you do that, Allah will change the condition of Muslims, because the Muslims now, they want Allah to change their condition. But what Muslims do, that they take a very illogical approach with Allah God Almighty. They want Allah to change their condition, but they don't do anything for the sake of Allah God Almighty. They want everything from Allah, and they don't do anything for Allah. The example of this, like a person going to head of a company, and he's telling him, look, I want money, I want position, I want everything, but he hasn't provided anything for the company. It's very illogical. So what you can do for Allah God Almighty is what you are hearing now, to spread it to people, to tell people about it, to strive to make His word supreme, to show people this sign in water testifying that Allah God Almighty is one. He's not three in one, He's not more than one God. So you can do that. And if you do that, then Allah will change the condition of Muslims. Because Allah promised people that if you strive to make Allah God Almighty supreme, and if you make Allah victorious, then Allah will make you victorious. And to know more details about this topic, please visit my website at www.quran-miracle.com, and you can email me at zaidg@yahoo.com, and may the peace and blessings of Allah be upon you all.